Welcome to Encounter, where we celebrate putting faith into action and community leaders who live out compassion, grace, and love. We're a program of the Broome County Council of Churches that addresses food insecurity through CHOW and the Greater Good Grocery, provides hospital and jail ministry, builds wheelchair ramps, and assists neighbors with transportation and shopping services through Faith in Action volunteers. We invite you to the conversation. Encounter your neighbors as we learn to walk together in love and kindness.
Good morning and welcome to Encounter. I'm your host today, Joe Sellepack, the Executive Director at the Broome County Council of Churches. One of the gems in our community is actually the United Way of Broome County. It's one of the organizations in our area that raises a lot of money for nonprofits in our area. One of the things that they do at the United Way, though, is they also house the 211 of the Susquehanna Valley. 211 is one of those programs that helps connect folks in our community with resources that our community also has that meets the needs of various people in our community. To help us learn a little bit more about what 211 does and to give us a little bit of a insight as to what's happening within 211 is April Rowlands. She's the director of 211. Welcome to Encounter today, April.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
So April, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become director of 211?
Sure. So I have worked in 211 for a little over a decade on different roles. I came there from the corporate world. I decided that maybe the corporate world wasn't meeting my needs as a human, and I moved over to look for something that was a little more fulfilling personally. And I luckily found a job at the United Way of Broome County within the 211 as a community resource specialist. I since have held other roles there as database curator, as team leader, and then with the retirement of our longtime director, I took over as director a year ago.
Now that was Candace, right?
That's correct, Candace Gregory.
Candace Gregory. She used to work for CHOW at one point in time.
Yes.
Long time ago. So what is it about 211 that you find fulfilling? Like, what is it that gives you that feeling that you're fulfilled?
So one of the things at 211, because we're Health and Human Services Information and Referral, many times we'll catch people on a bad day.
Right.
Maybe their worst day, whether they are facing food insecurity or if they're looking at an eviction. We are there when they need us, and we are able to help guide them to local resources, sometimes state resources, that are able to possibly help them in their time of need. I find that very fulfilling, and we love to take on that role in our community.
Yeah, it's interesting when people are desperate. They're either I would imagine that some of the folks that call you are very angry, and then on occasions you do find the person who is genuinely grateful, and those ones kind of make up for some of the anger that you might receive. But how do your 211 operators handle that?
So we are very heavily trained in information and referral, motivational interviewing, crisis management, and we have a local database that we curate with 3,000 resources. So everybody knows that we might be getting somebody on a bad day, and they are very empathetic, very understanding. They're fabulous listeners. They ask the right questions, and we don't take it personally. We have a process in place after a tough call to be able to hop off the phone, talk with another community resource specialist, run through it, and get yourself level set again to be available for the next caller that needs us.
Now you used the word motivational interviewing. What does that imply?
So we use a process where the person calling best knows their situation.
Right.
We just need to guide the questions to find what some possible solutions might be. So we are trained in controlling the situation, but listening, being able to ask follow-up questions to get to the heart of where the issues may be and where the resources may come in.
So listening is a really important part of that, right?
Yes, it's the most important thing we do.
So what do you think? What do you think are the ability of us to of listening, is in our community these days? It seems like there isn't an awful lot of that goes on.
It's a bit of a lost art because sometimes we just want to hear what we want to hear. But in the situation of 211 and community resource specialists, unless we listen to what's being said and understand the motivation of the person calling, we're not able to provide them with accurate resources. So it's very important that we listen to what they're saying and what they're not saying.
Yeah, and often, and I know we were talking about this before we even started, that you start off by listening to a call and it may lead to something else, right?
Exactly, and that's part of the training. Just because the one thing that we called for today, if we're facing eviction, there might be other things going on in the household, lack of medical care, lack of proper nutrition, food, other items that might have resources in our community that we can point the callers to that will help them with other parts of their life.
Is that what you would find here on this poster here?
Exactly.
Yes.
So this is just some highlighted items of things that we can assist with: food pantries, community meals, just the high-level types of items that we take calls for.
So shelter, housing, mental health, substance abuse.
Correct.
Seems like your folks are like a jack of all trades almost, right?
Well, we're only as good as the community resources. So we just ask the questions, listen for the answers, and then we use what's called taxonomy to search our database to find the best resources that are accessible to the folks calling us.
And how does that information get collected? Like, so you're a broker of services, correct?
Correct. So we have our very own homegrown database. We have a full-time database curator, and myself and some others on the team also assist. It's more than a full-time job. We are nationally accredited, and for that we have to update each of our resources yearly. So we count on the community-based organizations, the government organizations, to let us know when things change inside their programs. So we actively curate that database by sending out emails and making phone calls, attending community meetings to update and make sure it's the most accurate that it can be.
So my guest today is April Rowlands. She is the executive or the director of 211 of the Susquehanna Valley. So how many counties do you cover through 211?
So our 211, the Susquehanna River region, handles 5 counties: Broome, Shenango, Delaware, Otsego, and Tioga.
And when you think about that geographical area, it represents a lot of different types of communities, correct?
Absolutely.
So what are, like, when you think about like what the needs are that you're addressing, what are some of the more prevalent ones that kind of stand out to you, and what are some of the resources that are available in these communities that kind of meet those needs?
Sure. So historically, year over year, our highest needs are usually food, housing or rent assistance, and utility assistance, followed closely by, we work very closely with the free income tax preparation programs. We take a lot of calls to schedule those appointments. But so food, we work very closely with the Chow program, with Catholic Charities of Broome County, the Food Bank of the Southern Tier and their mobile food pantries. We do those registrations for Broome County. That need is pretty universal to all 5 of our counties, is the highest need. As far as rent assistance or housing, definitely in Broome County, it's our second need. Other locations, it is also a need, maybe not quite as high as Broome County. Otsego County has a pretty high need at this point for housing, having some housing issues there as well. So unfortunately, most of these issues are universal across all 5 of our counties.
And housing is a big issue here. I mean, talk about, like, almost every meeting that I go to these days has housing as being one of the things that we're currently having a crisis in. Trying to find affordable housing for people is, and especially families, is really, really hard.
Yes.
So how do you, like, if a person calls in and is looking for something, how do you direct them at that point?
So as far as housing, we do work with some of the local nonprofit housing agencies, and that's mostly what you'll find in our database. We don't have for-profit organizations. In the case where there's not another resource, there may be 1 or 2. But as far as housing, we'll refer folks to some of the local housing agencies that provide low income or housing for those that have disabilities. We also sometimes are faced with that there's really not a resource for their particular need. For instance, when they're facing eviction and owe thousands and thousands of dollars of rent, if they're not qualified and not able to receive resources from their local Department of Social Services, there's very few resources for that type of assistance, and unfortunately, we are the ones that will say so. If it doesn't really exist, we are open and honest with people so that they're not making calls that are just going to be dead ends for them. And then we'll work with them on other options.
I would imagine that's when the anger starts.
Yes.
Yeah, and you, unfortunately, and the folks answering the phone are the ones that would get the brunt of that anger at that point, right?
Yes. Yeah, we do hear from folks sometimes on their worst day, but we also take anything that they share with us and we share it with the organizations that are providing housing or the government agencies that are asking about the housing calls. We can share that information with them.
And shelters and all that kind of
Absolutely.
All that kind of information. So one of the times when I really got to know the work of 211 was during the flood that happened in 2011, because really 211 became a hub for the disaster recovery that went on at that point. Do you have anything that you would want to talk about as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, thank you for that. So in times of disaster, man-made or natural disasters, we are activated by the Offices of Emergency Management. We're there to back up the folks at 911 and emergency management to take the non-critical, non-emergency calls. So during the floods, we would take calls regarding where to get shelter. Sometimes we had the maps out and we're helping folks get around closed roads, where to get dry ice, things of this nature. We work very closely with all the emergency management teams and have a seat at their table when disaster strikes.
And you shared at one point in time with one of the community organizations active in disaster, which the council has been a part of for a long time. You were sharing at one of those meetings that when the disaster struck and we ended up having the flood in 2011, some of your folks slept at the 211 call center.
That's correct. So we are a 24/7, 365 service. We do not pick up the phone here locally that entire time. We have backup from another 211 in Rochester, New York. But for those days, the staff stayed on cots with blankets and stayed in the office for a little over 2 days, taking those calls until things started to settle down a little bit, and we could, take a little bit of a break and turn the phones over to the other agency. But yes.
And one of the other times that I really got to know them after that, subsequent, was when we had the huge snowstorms that hit us a few years ago. There were 2 years in a row that we ended up having over 3 feet of snow that fell. And you were taking calls from people asking, well, how do I get out of my house, and other kinds of stuff like that. That was a lot of work right there too, I'm sure.
Yeah, finding organizations that were able to go out and shovel was a big part of that.
Yeah, I remember what we did at the council was we put up these big maps, and your call center would bring in like all these little red dots that we had all over the map from all the calls that would come in. And then what we did was we tried to plot where various churches were that could kind of reach out to those people. Yes. To be able to meet those needs. And I remember going back and forth with 211, with the OEM, and a whole bunch of other things, just trying to put all this stuff together. And then getting the boots on the ground was the hardest aspect of it. But I think together we were able to help over 200 people with different calls that came in and helping folks get out of their house. I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah,
that was a great story from my perspective. So are there similar stories that you have, like that you can kind of point to? Success stories, perhaps?
Yeah, so of course we're 100% confidential. When callers call, the only thing we request from them is their zip code to ensure that we're giving them resources that cover their area.
Right. You wouldn't want a person from Otsego County getting a call from Broome. Yeah,
right. We don't want to do that to them. So, but generally speaking, a lot of our calls end up being, they'll start as one thing, and it could be something as simple as they're looking for a community meal for just tonight, but they're not aware of the pantry systems and the mobile food pantry systems that we have here. So we're able to share other resources, and sometimes it's not even for the need that they called for, and that's part of the conversation we try to have with folks to make sure that they're aware that there are other resources available for them that might not be what they're calling for today, but they can assist them with their other needs.
So one of the things that you connect people to is mental health issues, and
correct,
and being able to help folks in that kind of a way. So when you get a call from someone who is distraught, how do you, or experiencing an episode of mental illness or other kinds of stuff, how do you assess that, and how do you and what kind of services do you lead them to?
Sure. Well, one nice thing that we have available to us in our commercial database is that if we find that somebody's in duress, we do have a script that we follow pretty much verbatim to make sure that they are safe, those around them are safe. That's our first priority. So through a series of questions, we figure that out and then proceed accordingly. If they are in an emergency state, we can, with their assistance, bring in 911, Or if it's just a matter of they need to speak to somebody, we can get them to one of the warm lines. But we can always connect them with somebody that can assist them with any mental health issues that they are encountering. And we can do that real time for them.
That must be a really difficult and very touchy kind of situation to be in, right?
It can be very difficult. I can tell you that one of my first calls within my first week was a caller that was in one of our more rural counties, all alone and very distraught. It was only with the help of my colleagues that I was able to get through, ask those right questions, and then get to a point where she was at least comfortable sharing her location, and we were able to dispatch 911 to assist her.
And do you often have like 211? Would you have a lot of calls from folks who are looking to get out of abusive situations or things like that?
We do, and luckily we do have several organizations here locally that assist with that type of help.
And that would be like Rise and other kinds of places like that.
Right, Rise, Vera House.
So that must be an equally touchy subject to be on with people.
It is, because again, we're confidential, but we also have in place for our caller safety is if we lose a phone call like that, we're not returning it. It puts them in jeopardy. So we have to keep these things in mind as we're talking with them, listening to them, asking the questions to get the most pertinent information as soon as possible, and then go from there.
And 211 is what people just need to dial. All they need to do is dial 211, right?
That's correct. Now, some of our friends that just live across the Pennsylvania border have encountered it bounces off a cell tower and it comes to us as opposed to the Northeast PA. So we do have an 800 number. If 211 isn't getting you to the Susquehanna River region, they can dial 1-800-901-2180.
Okay. And can you repeat that again?
Sure. It's 1-800-901-2180.
And people can call that to get through, to find resources that they're looking for in the community that would be able to meet their needs.
Absolutely.
So that would be the most rewarding part of the job, right? Is when you can make that connection for people. But there must be situations where the person on the call center can't meet those needs, what kind of emotional toll does that take on one of your persons on that end of the situation?
Unfortunately, that is true, and it can be very frustrating because we're hearing it firsthand. The families that aren't able to stay in their homes, or somebody that's lacking transportation that can't get to job interviews, whatever it might be. It is difficult, but we realize there are so many community-based organizations doing everything that they can to help our community that we realize there's going to be some times that things come up short. And as difficult as that is, we just work through it. We have processes in place where we take breaks. We go color, we go listen to music, we take a walk outside, and just try to leave it behind because there's just so much that anybody can do. So we try to be realistic about it, but it can be very frustrating.
Yeah, so I would imagine that, well, I know it's the same with some of the folks who are on the like in the our call center, and then the folks who call in for Faith in Action and other things like that. And I end up having to remind them, that they're human, that they can't solve every problem that comes, that we can be a resource, we can be a friendly ear, but we need to remind ourselves that we are finite and that you know, the name is, well, I am not God and I'm glad. You know, it's like
Right.
that kind of thing, because God of course has to deal with all these problems. But so when you're thinking about the 211 of Susquehanna Valley and some of the things that you're currently doing, where do you think, where are you headed? Like what's next? What's going on within the program that you're trying to develop and that kind of thing?
Sure, thank you. So one of the things we're most proud of is the relationships we have with the community-based organizations, CHOW, Catholic Charities Food Bank, the VITA tax program. We'd like to build up some of those other relationships similar, where we can assist and make life easier for both the community-based organization and the callers. One of the things we are focusing on right now is getting out into the community more. We are, as you said, one of the best kept secrets. We've been a 211 since 2011, and before that, some people might remember us as First Call for Help
First Call for
since
Help,
1983. Yeah. So we've been at this a long time, and there's still folks that are like, well, I can call 211. So we are always looking for opportunities to table out in the community or to present to organizations or businesses, to their employees or their clients, to let them know what 211 is and how it might assist them.
And this list here has a lot of information on this that really talks about all the various needs that you kind of can call in from. You have listed here food pantries, community meals, shelter and housing, mental health, substance abuse, health care, clothing, utilities, and then underneath it says and more.
And more, yeah. So we, I believe Candace Gregory shared this with me. So burning building, call 911. Burning question, call 211. If you don't know where to look or what might be available, please give us a call.
And there's no penalties like 911. You only call if you have an emergency. 211, you can get a friendly ear, you can get a listening ear, even if you just have a burning question.
Absolutely.
So there's no penalty at all for that.
No.
So April, it's always good to have folks from United Way on our show, but especially today with 211 and the work that you all do. I want to thank you for that work, and I want to encourage you as you're going forward that you're doing good work, and to let your folks, all the call center folks know that we appreciate them and we think that they're doing a great job.
Thank you for that.
And it's great having you on Encounter.
Thank you.
And for all of you today, I pray that you would be good, kind, and generous with each other. Have a great day.